So this is solving right triangles. You're basically going to get given word problems, and then from the word problems, you'll be able to set yourself up with a diagram in which it involves a right triangle. You're going to be missing some portion of information, given some portion of information, and you'll be able to set up using sine, cosine, or tangent an equation and then solve it for whatever you're missing. So the two pieces of information you have to know is angle of elevation and angle of depression. Angle of depression is the thing people get wrong the most. Angle of depression is eye level down. Okay, so if I am standing at the top of a mountain and I'm looking at something that's low in the valley, the angle of depression is from if I were to be looking straight ahead, that line here, that horizontal line, down to whatever I sight on the bottom. So that's hopefully what this diagram is showing you. Like if you're here, then your angle of depression is eye level down. Most people put the angle here. That's not the right spot, okay? The spot for angle of depression is horizontal or eye level down, okay? That's the most important thing you need to know about angle of depression. Angle of elevation, which is a little bit more common, is from ground level or eye level up. So if I'm standing on a mountain and I'm looking up at a higher mountain, or I'm looking up at a plane flying in the air above me, then the angle of elevation is from my eye level, which again would be that horizontal line, up. So depression, eye level down, elevation, eye level up. So you could be looking on the ground up at something, that's an angle of elevation. They'll say the angle of elevation of the sun, which would be as if you were lying on the ground and looking up at the sun, that kind of thing. The rest of this is how do you figure out how to set it up. So this says if you look up at an object, the angle of your line of sight makes the horizontal line is called the angle of elevation. If you look down at the object, the angle of your line of sight makes with the horizontal line is called the angle of depression. So this kind of just gives you a visual of what I was just saying. If you're standing up on that little cliff and you're looking down, then this is your angle of depression. If you're on the ground looking up, then this is your angle of elevation. So your task, the hardest part, is figuring out what's it look like. Okay, so you're going to have to take these word problems and try to give yourself a visual. It says draw a diagram showing a person who is 1.5 meters tall, standing 20 meters from the base of a building, and show that the person sights the top of a building with an angle of 58 degrees. Then find the height of the building. This is when I get to look at your artistic ability. And I don't judge you because mine's horrible. You're about to see it. All right, so if I have a person who is 1.5 meters tall, God bless you. And they're standing 20 meters from the base of a building. Show that the person sights the top of a building with an angle of elevation of 58 degrees. So from this person's eye level up is 58 degrees. And it says find the height of the building. So do you see a right triangle formed here? Yeah, you should see there's a right triangle, right? It looks like this. I know that the bottom, because these are parallel distances, would be 20 meters, right? So if the bottom of the line on the floor is 20 meters, then so would the line be from their eye set straight across, be 20 meters. We're assuming this is a straight up and down building. Now I want to find the height of the building. So if I actually find the opposite side of this triangle here, if I find X, does that give me the height of the building? What's missing from it? The height of the person. So that's why they give it to you, right? So if the height of the person on this side is 1.5, then this vertical distance is also 1.5. So once I find X, what can I do to get the full height of the building? Add the 1.5. Okay, so let's first find X. So in respect to that 58, where's 20? Adjacent, where's X? Opposite. Which trig function is adjacent and opposite, or opposite and adjacent? Tangent. So I'm saying the tangent of 58 would equal the side opposite it, which is X, over the adjacent side, which is 20. And then how do I get the x? Yep. Good. Multiply both sides by 20. So it's 32.006. Keep it as 32 because 32.0 is still 32. And that's the height from their eye level up, which means I want to take that and add the 1.5 meters to it, which means this is 33.5 meters tall. Okay, this one's talking about the sun's angle of elevation. So the angle of elevation of the sun can be shown by ground level up. Okay? So it says the sun's angle of elevation is 38 degrees on a building that casts a shadow of 45 meters. So again, I've got a building. Okay? Let's say that the sun is over here. Now the way that it casts the shadow is it comes back this way. Right? It would hit that building. The building shadow would be behind it. So this here would be 45 meters. Now the way the angle of elevation works is, let's say I draw a horizontal line here, and this is my angle of elevation from the top of the building. What would be true about this angle here on that bottom left corner? It's congruent. And why? You're on the right track. But what's the relationship? They're corresponding. Okay? So the good thing is you don't have to do that every time. You recognize that the angle of elevation goes from ground level up to sun. Okay? But that's why it is that you can do that. Those are basically, if I drew a straight line off the top of the building, a straight line on the ground, those would be parallel and corresponding angles. So now if I want to know the height of the building, this is my x. God bless you. Again, I have what two sides? Opposite and adjacent. So tangent of 38 equals x over 45. And then just like the last time, multiply the 45 on either side. And this is 35.2 meters. Okay, if it said approximate or if it said round to the nearest whole number, nearest tenth, just pay attention to what it says. So on the test, I think I have you rounding to the nearest tenth, which would mean 35.2. Okay, so I'm just going to label them so that we can kind of just make it easier instead of doing A, B, and B, C. I'm going to say that this is X and this is Y. The easiest thing to find is what? Angle B, right? Angle B, all I have to do is, how do I get angle B? Subtract 42 from 90 is the fastest way, right? Which makes it what? What's 90 minus 42? 48. So now I know that angle. When I go to solve for x and y, I would still stick with the 42. Why would I suggest you stick with the 42? You know it's right. Okay, if you accidentally did the 90 minus 42 in your head and you got 38 or 58 instead of 48 because you think you're smarter than your calculator and you don't use it, and you get that wrong, and then you use that angle, now you're going to continue to get the rest of the whole thing wrong. Okay, so be careful. All right, so now let's say I want to solve for x first. So I'm going to stick with the 42. Now I have x, and I'm going to stick with the 70, which is the one that they gave me. What trig function am I using? Tangent. So the tangent of 42 would be x over 70, and then I would do 70 times the tangent of 42. And I get 63.02. So 63.0 would be side BC. Now I want to find y. So, yep. It'll say, yeah, so in this case, when it's round to the nearest tenth, then it's a 0. 63 is the same exact as 63.0. Obviously, if there's a decimal other than 0, you would need it. But if it's 0, it doesn't matter. So now let's say I want to solve for y. I always want to go back to what they originally gave me, the 42 and the 70. So in respect to the 42, 70 and y are what two sides? In respect to the 42, 70 and y. What's 70? Adjacent y, hypotenuse. So what's adjacent in hypotenuse? Cosine. So I would say the cosine of 42 equals 70 over y. This time, the number's in the top. So I divide. 70 divided by the cosine of 42.
How do you use 42 in that?
I always stick what they originally gave me.
But what about, you can't use 70?
Well, but the angle, you have to have the angle with the trig function. So the angle always goes with the function, and then the sides go on the opposite side. So y equals 94.2.
I read sine as the one with the 48.
You should get the same answer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
The catch would be if 48 was wrong.
oh.
Yeah. So that's the only reason I wouldn't have done it that way, but that's definitely a way to do it.
Real quick, in the calculator for cosine, do you do like cosine 42 divided?
On that calculator, you would do 70 divided by the cosine of 42. Yep.
I did the tangent of 42 and then 63 over x. I got it wrong.
Because you switched them. Oh wait, tangent of 42, and you're trying to find AB, you mean? Then it should be, that's opposite in hypotenuse. That should be sine. So you use this side? You found the y first?
Yeah. No, I found that.
Oh, I labeled this wrong. This should be actually, I'm sorry. The x is what we found first. The x is 63. And then the y is what we just found, and that's 94.2. So if you use angle 42 and 63 and then the hypotenuse, that's opposite and hypotenuse, which is sine. So now a good way to check this is your Pythagorean theorem, right? Because 70 squared plus 63 squared should equal 94.2 squared. So if you do that in the calculator, 70 squared plus 63 squared, I end up with 8,869 square root that, and I get 94.17, which is 94.2. So it's a good way to check it. You could have found y using the Pythagorean theorem. It's just the same thing as before. If you had gotten x wrong, you're going to get y wrong as well. So best bet would be to do both and check it. Questions on that one? And this last one says, suppose your school is building a raked stage. That should be raised stage. Interesting. The stage, I'm like, what is that? The stage will be 30 feet long from front to back with a total rise of 2 feet. It does give me. A rake or angle of elevation of 5% or less is generally preferred for the safety and comfort of the actors. Nobody wants to be falling off the stage. Is the rake stage you're building within the range it suggests? So, a couple of pieces of information given to you. It's 30 feet long, so from front to back it's 30 feet long, which they label here. A total rise is 2 feet, so the vertical change is 2 feet, which they give you here. And your goal is to get the angle of elevation to be less than 5%. So it even tells you where x is. That's my angle of elevation. But I need for that to be less than 5%. So I'm going to have to figure out what x is and then just answer. Is it less than 5% or is it not? Is it safe or not? So how do I find the angle if I'm given the sides? Lourdes.
Sine -1.
Good. Remember, inverse of the trig functions is going to give you the angles, right? So I set it up exactly the same way as I did before, except that this time I have opposite hypotenuse, which tells me which trig function. Sine. This time I don't know the angle. And opposite over hypotenuse. So I'm given the actual ratio this time, and I'm looking for the angle measurement. So I do the -1, yep. So sine -1 of 2 divided by 30. You could simplify it or not, it doesn't matter. It's going to give you the same answer. This is when I'm finding angle. Yep. So angle x is 3.8 degrees. Is it building within the range suggested? Yes. Okay, the goal is to get less than 5%. So when you're looking for a side length, you're using sine, cosine, tangent, and the regular buttons. But when you're looking for the angle measurement, you're going to be using the inverse trig functions. Okay? So if I gave you, so that 3.8 is this angle that's in here. And it's saying if this is less than 5 degrees, then it's safe. So 3.8 is less than 5, which makes it safe. Does that make sense? Okay. Other questions? So again, the good thing about this section is it forces you to review 7.5 and 7.6, which are all on your test. Okay, I published just a regular triangle, and I said that this was 7 and this is 10, and I asked you to find this angle. Actually, let me move this. Yeah, no, that's fine. Which trig function would you be using? Tangent, right? In respect to that x, you've got opposite and adjacent. Everybody sees that? So this would be tangent of x equals 7 over 10, and then I would do tangent -1 of 7 divided by 10. This is 34.99, so this would be 35 degrees. Alejandro.
How would you know on the example 4 that 3.8 degrees